Robert Plank Show, Episode 322 Ardor Seo. Build links, boost your search ranking, and think outside the box with reputation engineer and authority marketer Kris Reid. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the show. Right now we're talking with Kris Reid, and just if you're following along, here's how to spell his name: K-R-I-S-R-E-I-D. So we're talking with Kris, and he's the founder and CEO of Ardor Seo, and that's ARDORSEO.com. And Kris started out as a software engineer, and he worked for a variety of companies before he took a break from the corporate world to backpack and find his passion. Kris ended up developing a game and was looking for ways to promote it, which led him to learn about SEO. And then Kris started creating tools that increase website ranking, and now that's the basis of his company, Ardor Seo. So Kris, welcome to the show.
Hey, Robert, great. Thanks very much for having me.
I'm glad that you're here and all that cool stuff. And so this Ardor SEO, can you kind of tell us a little bit about it and what makes you guys different?
Yeah, so kind of like, as you mentioned earlier, it all happened by happenstance, by fluke. You know, I was building an online game for a bit of fun. I'm a software engineer. And yeah, wanted to learn how you get people to your website to play the game. And so I started learning about SEO, and that became, my passion. And yeah, that's what I live and breathe every day. I was, just a second before you called, looking through some rankings to find some keyword opportunities for a customer. It's just a whole lot of fun.
Awesome. Yeah. It seems like the people that are like really into the SEO and the site building and the link building, they really geek out, and it's like they really have a lot of fun. It's not like a thing that kind of has to be forced. Some of these guys like just really enjoy like always kind of poring over the latest rules or seeing whatever the latest sort of tools are and stuff. And so we mentioned a couple of times that this all started with a kind of game that you created. So can you kind of start us there and tell us about like what this game was all about?
Yeah, so I always used to work in finance when I was a software engineer, and banks always have desktop applications that are not online so that they don't have to worry about security so much because they're not vulnerable to the outside world. And so after the financial crisis, I lost my job like most people in finance. And I thought, well, I want to learn about web programming. So I started building this game really just out of wanting to learn how to do web programming, and I was really enjoying it. And it was just an online game that was not overly complicated, but what the end result was not to build a game; it was for me to learn how to program. But and even before the game came to fruition, because it was a multiplayer game called Mob Warrior, the website's still there, but there's not much going on. And I drove heaps of people to the site, and it was working really well. And what actually happened is my girlfriend at the time was Russian, and she asked me to move to Russia, and I did. And my language skills were quite limited at the time, which meant my career prospects were quite limited at the time. So I thought, well, I wonder if I can make any money out of this SEO business, and turns out I could, and it's been going along ever since.
Awesome stuff. So it's like one thing led to the next, and that's great that you said that you kind of created the game, that's online game, not necessarily to make the online game. It was to kind of just like you needed to learn something, and doing like exercises and doing test stuff would only get you so far, but by having an actual project, it's like you were able to figure out what skills you'd actually need in the real world as opposed to learning a bunch of sort of theory stuff. And so, I mean, when you started then kind of looking into some of this like SEO stuff and all that, I mean, what sort of time frame are we talking about, and what sort of things were you doing back then?
So this was back around 2010, so been doing it quite a while now. And one thing that really fascinated me was PageRank, which is the algorithm behind Google and why Google dominated the search engines. Basically, Larry Page, the co-founder of Google, when he was at university, he ascertained that if you write a book and then everyone else who writes a book references your book, well, you must be the authority in that niche. And so he figured, well, it must be the same with websites. If everyone's linking to your website, then you must be the authority. And so he developed the PageRank algorithm, and it worked brilliantly. And Google became the dominant authority and destroyed all the other search engines. And so I just thought that was fascinating, and looked at how you can attract links and still do that. I mean, basically, if you've got a decent website and you got good content, you add links to it, it shoots up. And I that's what we focus on is how do you get people to link to your website.
Well, cool. And then so it's all about getting these sort of links to your site. And when you're mentioning some of these things like PageRank and like the different like rules and stuff like that, the thing that always kind of comes to mind about that sort of stuff is I always hear about like, oh, well, here's this rule or here's like this slap or like it seems like different things are sort of changing. And so, I mean, what's sort of your answer to that? Are there like some sort of like rules that like have always held true ever since you started? And then like, I mean, what sort of stays the same and like what sort of changes?
So yeah, like before Google came around, you used to be able to do like keyword stuffing. You could write like "buy Nike" a million times on your website, and you'd rank number one for "buy Nike." And then obviously PageRank destroyed that, but then you could still manipulate Google by adding lots of links that might not be the highest quality, and having like thin content. And so what Google tries to do, they keep updating their algorithm to provide the best search results and the best user experience. And so they monitor websites and check that they load fast, that they're mobile friendly, that their link profile is organic. They don't want people to really be manipulating the system. So it gets harder to do what's called black hat SEO, which is kind of doing the naughty things. And so it's pushing people to provide better and better content. So it's better for the end user, and that's what Google wants, that their end searcher gets to a website that's got great content and serves their search result.
Makes a lot of sense. So it sounds like all of these black hat sorts of things, like these sort of tricks that would work for a little while. It seems like back in the day, like they would work for a few months, and then once Google got a better handle on their algorithm and kind of hired more employees and started putting in like artificial intelligence and like having humans go and check that. It seems like at a certain point it got like that window became less and less until like now it's like it's almost impossible to sort of game the system. And so you mentioned like some of these things to kind of be, I guess, white hat about it and sort of provide Google with what they want. Like you mentioned, fast load time, making sure that things are mobile responsive and having organic links. And so, I mean, what's sort of the starting point? Like, do you have like a sort of checklist to kind of go through all these things to make sure that they're like all there? Like, where do you start as far as making sure a site has everything it needs?
Yeah, well, it depends where you've started from. If you've got an existing site or a new site. So like we've got a customer who has one site with us that's going great, and he had another side project that he had put on this, put aside because his main business was taking all his focus. And he sillily didn't renew his domain name, and it expired, and someone else picked it up. And now he wants to pick that business up again and run it with us. And he said, "Oh, I got this new domain name." I said, "Well, a new domain name can be really hard to rank because it's got no authority. It's Google sees this brand new domain and goes, well, why do I care about that? No one's linking to it. It's a brand new site. I mean, lots of businesses come and go. Why should we pay attention to that?" So I said to him, perhaps it's better to buy an aged domain. If you're not, married to the brand name, like if you don't have a brand name yet, you can buy an aged domain. So someone might have been sitting on a domain, about anything, coffee cups for 10 years. And, that domain might have some links to it and some authority, and using that will rank a lot quicker than a brand new one. So, if that's an option for you, then go for that. But if your brand name is, needs to be on that domain, which some for some businesses it does. Like we have a lot of local businesses, and sometimes they'll have a domain name like Sydney Locksmith rather than Johnny's Locksmith, which is not great for branding. But when people don't really care about your brand, they just want a locksmith now, and so they're searching Sydney Locksmith, it's okay. But when you want to build a brand like Apple or Samsung, then it does matter. You don't want to just have the domain of buy iPhone or buy smartphone. So it depends where you are and what sort of business you have.
Okay, so it makes a lot of sense. So have that that aged domain. Make sure that you, if you can, have a a web address that hasn't, just recently been registered and all that sort of good stuff. And so, I mean, when people come to you to get their either their new website or their existing website, kind of that better ranking or more backlinks or stuff like that, and what's the starting point? Like, are people usually like already tried some things on their own, or are they unaware of SEO, or like kind of where are people coming from by the time they get to you?
Yeah, generally when people come to us, they do know something about digital marketing. They've either been with another agency before or they've done something themselves. It's pretty rare that we do have someone that's fresh out of the gates, though we did just start working with a large drug treatment center and they are brand new. They've just bought their domain and just set up shop. So yeah, we do get a variety of everything. The brand new one is pretty fun because I mean, we have to set up their Google Places and do all the citations and everything. And, in their business, having a brand name is very important. So an age domain is not possible. But, because they provide an interesting service and have a unique selling point, they do drug treatment in Chiang Mai in Thailand and targeting, Western countries because, in the US and Great Britain, that sort of service is really expensive, and so they can provide excellent healthcare at a fraction of the price. And so that's a really great selling point and interesting to newspapers and journals that are interested in drug treatment. So you can do outreach to them and provide content for them, and they give you a fantastic link back and drive traffic to your website and build your authority.
So have these sort of link backs any way that you can to get that authority. And so when people know a little bit about some of this like SEO stuff when they come to you. And are there any sort of weird like misunderstandings as far as like what they're willing to do or what they want? Because like for example, like one time I had a chat with my accountant about like some of this internet stuff, and he said like he doesn't want to do Facebook at all. And I was thinking like, okay, but that seems like a weird way to kind of miss out on your business. Or I've seen some other businesses kind of like really get excited that if you type in a certain keyword in Google, they're the only search result. And I'm thinking like, well, if you're the only search result for something, like it seems like that's not a very high volume keyword. So have you seen anything sort of like that, like any like common sort of misunderstandings about SEO and stuff like that?
Certainly, as the market has become more mature, it's getting good. It's getting more interesting conversations. So like when I first started out, you'd talk to people and they go, oh, but I've already got a website. And you're like, yeah, I know you got a website. But then they go, well, if you type in Johnny's hair salon, I'm number one. Yeah, that's people that already know you and are looking for you. It did become difficult to explain to people. People aren't searching for your business name. They're searching for, hair salon near me or whatever, some keyword. And people generally understand that now. And so you can show them. But still, one thing that becomes difficult is Google manipulates the search results to show you what they want you to, what they think you want to see. So if you're logged into your Gmail account, they know your search history. And if you go to your website a lot, so then you type, hair salon near me, it'll show your website near the top where everyone else doesn't get to see that. I'm in Cambodia at the moment, and I was having a chat with a customer in Brisbane, Australia, where I'm from, just yesterday. And it was hard for me to get the right search results because we're looking for medical centres. And if I type medical centres Brisbane, it gives me the Brisbane result. But if I type medical centres just into Google, it gives me the local results of where I am here in Phnom Penh, which are different to where the results that he sees in Brisbane. Because Google understands that if you're looking for a medical centre, you're not looking for one on the other side of the world. You want to go and see a local guy, yeah? So explaining that to people can get a little bit tricky.
I imagine, and that could totally be a thing where I could just see, yeah. So if someone is Sydney and they're like barbershop Sydney, and if they search barbershop without the city, they'll think they rank number one or number two in the whole world, and that's just because Google is sort of localizing that search result when really they should look at that search result like globally or from someone else's computer or something like that. So I mean, so that's pretty cool. And so as far as like the services and things you provide, like is there a certain way you split it up? Like for example, like do you look at it as like sometimes you provide this backlinking, sometimes content marketing, sometimes like site audits? Like, do you have any sort of way of figuring out that logic as far as like those different services you provide?
Yeah, so we started out as a link building company. That was our main strength, and it still is. And most of our customers then were SEO companies, as they need the most links. And you bring one SEO company on, and they might have 30 or 50 customers that need links. So it's works fantastic. So we used to target on that market rather than retail SEOs, retail websites where they only need a handful of links. But from that, we grew and became like a full service agency. And so we have a lot more retail customers ourselves. And then working with what they need, per se, is really, so bespoke, because you can, digital marketing is like any other form of marketing. You can spend $1 million a month on it, or you can spend $10. It depends on what your goals are. And so the first step that we have is we've got a nice questionnaire that we go through people and try and ascertain, what are you trying to achieve? And then we go away and look at how is the best way to achieve that. And sometimes it's just not possible to, like, they'll have some keyword in mind that they're like, oh, I really want to rank for this. And you look at the search results and you see, well, there's all these Fortune 500 companies. Do you really think that you're going to beat them? They have so much more authority. I mean, you can, but it's gonna, they spend millions on their website and their content and their outreach. If you want to compete with them in the same field, then sure, but is it worth it? So yeah, you really want to try and get the customer's goals, work out a plan, and show them how to achieve it. And digital marketing, it's a top level business where it brings in extra money. So if someone's spending $1,000 and you show them that they're making $5,000, then everyone's happy. And one thing I always say to people is, we win when you win. It's in our very best interest to get you a positive ROI as quickly as possible, because as soon as we've got you making more money than our service costs, then you're a customer for life. So win win win.
Right, and that makes a lot of sense. And so, sort of what I'm hearing from you is maybe it's not necessarily a mindset of look at like all these things I can do, like link building or stuff like that, but think about like, what are my goals, and then based on my goals, figure out a plan, and then to make that plan possible, then there are sort of tools to use, like building links or things like that. But if the goal is to rank better for a certain keyword or to get more traffic or something like that, it sounds like look at what that end goal is, and then sort of the tools sort of come with that. And so, like with link building, if I heard your story correctly, maybe like a few minutes ago about sort of, it sounded like, so a good way for link building is to find these sort of high-ranking authority sites and then write content for them and then sort of get a link back. And so, every now and then I sort of get like a contact form request or something like asking for like a guest blog post, or sometimes I've gotten like a contact form message for like a blog post where maybe I like link to some sort of service like Amazon Kindle, for example, or something, and they'll say, well, we're a competitor to them, and if you switch your link to like our article or our service, then we'd appreciate that. And so, I mean, do you do any like strategies like that, or do you have any strategies to recommend as far as like those kinds of link building sort of methods?
So one thing that I think works better in link building is really showing your passion, right? Everyone gets into business because they love doing what they do. They mightn't be passionate about digital marketing, but they are passionate about what they do. You go and speak to a butcher and he'll speak to you for hours about different cuts of meats and different knives and all the butcher things. And, they're usually so passionate about their tools that, they'll go, oh, this knife's way better than brand B, And so then you can contact whatever knife company that they're really happy with and go, hey, would you like a testimonial from our guy? And, you can have a really great story. Here's Jeff's butcher down in Brisbane. He's been using these knives for 20 years and, this is what he says, blah, 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 blah. And, the knife company loves it because it's, a real life story, a use case of someone using their product and being a total fanboy. And, there's probably not just one product that a butcher uses and is passionate about. Whoever did their a stainless steel countertop. You can go, hey, I just love your countertop. You did such a great job at it. Boom, there you go. They need content for their website. Having an actual real user that says you did just such a brilliant job of installing my countertop. It's had it for 10 years and it's serves the purpose perfectly. Then you're providing really authentic content that's great for both a link back to the butcher shop, but great for the end user on the countertop website and the countertop company themselves. So it's win-win-win.
Yeah, that sounds like a really good idea. So maybe a good idea is to think about things that we're like customers or users of, and make like a testimonial or some kind of like helpful piece of content or some video. Because like I can imagine like with pieces of software or like website services or like just explaining like how some tool works or how to like solve some sort of problem. I can imagine that those are all sorts of things that'll be really helpful for everybody. And sort of along those lines, like just before we got to talking here, I went over to your website, to Ardor Seo, and I was just kind of clicking around, and I noticed that there was like you were on another podcast called Mixergy, and I noticed that instead of like linking directly to the interview, you kind of made a blog post. And it's almost like a news sort of blog post, like reporting on yourself. And you said, here's what Mixergy is all about, and here's his guest, here's how he's awesome, here's a little bit about our episode on there, and then you linked to it in the bottom. So I mean, is that the sort of thing that you do like pretty often, or like what's sort of the thought process behind doing something like that, of like reporting on a thing and then linking as opposed to just linking?
Yeah, well, I mean, you need some website content on your website too. So it's great to show that Mixergy's a giant podcast. So I was pretty proud to be on that. And so it's a great. Here's what we've done. Once you've made it to a certain level, it builds authority yourself. You can see that it's real because there's links to the actual show. But you also don't want to be sending people away from your website where possible. I mean, when you click on the link there, you'll see it opens in a new window, so that at least you still have ours open, because you've got someone to your website. You want them to do whatever you want them to do. Ideally, we want you to make an appointment and speak with us.
Yeah, and I mean, what's cool also about this whole thing of having like the blog post about it, like you said, like we don't want to necessarily leak a bunch of visitors off of our website, but if that particular post gets a lot of views compared to the other posts, and you can sort of see, okay, well, that's the sort of thing that I can make sort of more content about. So that's pretty cool. So just for people listening, the blog post I was looking at is ardorseo.com/blog/Mixergy, and that's a really good idea, because I think that a lot of us have all like maybe been a guest on someone else's show at least every now and then, and I was trying to think about like, should I make like a big page that like lists a link to every single thing, but now I'm thinking if I just sort of make almost like a press release sort of blog post explaining about the interview they're about to link to, I can kind of have that sort of double dip, right? Link to it and do all that cool stuff, but also not leak a bunch of visitors off of my site, and then also have that other sort of thing in the listing. So I mean, that's a really cool just thing that I noticed on your blog. So I just kind of wanted to let you know that's something that I sort of noticed there. So I don't want to keep you too long, and we're kind of starting to sort of wind down here. And so, Mr. Kris, in all your sort of travels with SEO and like working with different clients and stuff like that, are you seeing like a number one mistake people are making as far as backlinking and SEO on their websites?
Yeah. Well, one thing that people do is not pick up the low-hanging fruit. Like, they'll find a new keyword and go, I want to grab this. And they might not be in the top 100, where it's like, it's so much easier to, if you're number 11, so on page 2 of the search results, which gets like the whole of the page 1 gets 99.2% of the traffic. So you're fighting for, 0.8% of the traffic being on page 2. It's a lot easier to move one spot up to number 10, which gets like 6% of the traffic. So you've just, exponentially got to, increase your traffic by moving up one spot. So if you can find all of the valuable keywords that you're, on page 2 for, do a little bit of, I was just looking at a lawyer site who's on page 2 for a very high traffic keyword. and he's there because the keyword's in the meta description, but it's not in the page content. And so all you need to do is edit that page content, add it in there, and I bet he'll shoot onto page one. Another thing he could do is include some internal linking. So another page on his website that mentions that keyword, have a link to this article, and I bet it'll jump up another couple spots. That's really simple way to get heaps more traffic, and it doesn't cost you a thing.
Interesting. That's a really cool way of looking at it. I never thought about that. Like, so what you're saying is, so if someone looks at the keywords they rank for, and they're ranked 83 on something, and they say, well, I want to bring it from 83 all the way to 1, then maybe that's like a lot of work for just maybe not that big of a jump. But if they're maybe ranked at maybe like 12 or 13, if they can just do a little bit and go from that to 10, or go from 11 to 10, now they'll be on the front page of the Google search results as opposed to like page 2 or 3, and then they can do that from just those little tweaks, like put that stuff in the meta description, or like have that internal linking in their site. So that's a really good idea as far as like focusing on what to improve there. And so, like, do you have any of like favorite sort of SEO tools that you use to kind of figure out this sort of stuff?
Oh, yeah, we use a bunch of them. I mean, Ahrefs is a great one. That's what I was just using to look at that information. Moz is another one. These are basically like crawlers they're like little versions of Google. They they don't have the same money as Google, so they can't crawl the whole internet. But they try and look through all the links and see who's linking to who, and why stuff's ranking where. And it gives you a good way to kind of reverse engineer Google. But these tools can get pretty expensive to do it if you're one-off, which could be out of some people's price range. But for us, they're fantastic.
Cool, and I mean, but it's probably cool for people to see sort of as far as what these tools do and what kind of things they should be looking for. And so if people kind of listen to our conversation today and they say, okay, well, I need to get serious about my SEO, or I need to know about link building or stuff like that, and they say, there are these tools out there, and some of them are okay, but some of them are paid, so if I'm going to pay anyway, I might as well just pay someone to use the tool who's an expert. After listening to our talk today, what sort of website should they be going to?
Oh, to find out about Ardor Seo, you can certainly go to our website. That's a great place to start. Or listen to us you can listen to me on a bunch of podcasts, including this one.
Awesome. So ardorseo.com, and am I correct in that you can listen to you on podcasts and see blog posts, and there's also an easy way for people to get in touch with you. Is that right?
Indeed. If you go to our site, there's a booking form there where you can book in a strategy call. So either me or one of our guys will go through your website with you and help you help you define what your goals will be and put together a strategy for you, which you're welcome to work with us, or you can do it yourself or go to another agency or whatever. But it's a super valuable strategy, so I'd highly recommend that you book in a call.
Great stuff, and I highly recommend that you guys listening do that as well. So make sure you go to ardorseo.com, click on that contact button, and then you'll see the form, and then you can book that strategy call to kind of see where you're at, see what Kris and his team can do for you, and kind of see if it's a right fit for you to move on to that next level. You have nothing to risk. Just check it out and see what your options are, ardorseo.com. And I want to thank you, Mr. Kris, for stopping by and sharing your favorite SEO strategies and tips and all that good stuff today.
Cheers, Robert. Thanks very much, mate.
Please take a second to rate and subscribe to The Robert Plank Show in the iTunes Store. It's free. robertplank.com/iTunes.